He says, in part, ordinary men and women will be expected to be docile, industrious, punctual, thoughtless, and contented. Of these qualities, probably contentment will be considered the most important. In order to produce it, all the researches of psychoanalysis, of behaviorism, and biochemistry will be brought into play. That was Bertrand Russell in 1931. Of course, the same one who says that through diet injections and injunctions, you'll be incapable of having independent thought or thought contrary to that of the state. Now, but they specifically have envisioned using television, using radio, using other types of mass media to brainwash us, to put forward these unacceptable ideas and make us learn to love our own servitude, as Aldous Huxley talked about. You see his discussion of UNESCO's role. Of course, Bertrand Russell worked closely with Sir Julian Huxley, the first head of UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Science, and Culture Organization. He said, "I think the subject, which will be of most importance politically, is mass psychology. Its importance has been enormously increased by the growth of modern methods of propaganda. Of these, the most influential is what is called, quote, education. Religion plays a part, though a diminishing one. The press, the cinema, and the radio play an increasing part in propaganda, in mass psychology. They're going to use so-called education and the mass media to give us the ideas they want us to accept. It's that simple, but nobody ever seems to see through it. We buy into war after war, and it's just textbook stuff. They've studied how to game us. You got to take a look at this for yourself. I wish I could articulate it better. We turn now to the subject of hacking, the subject of cheetah robots, and the subject of literal speech jamming guns. Now, the first of those is a new bust that reveals that government runs the hacking groups. Of course they do. They run the antivirus software based on running the virus software. They run counterterrorism measures based on phony terrorists. Use to create a provocation. All they want is more power, and that's the way they sell these ideas. Now, Kurt Nimmo explains how the leader of Lulzsec has ratted out his hacktivist comrades with the establishment media, revealing further that government is responsible for creating and unleashing computer hacker groups. Monsegur, a.k.a. Sabu, decided what targets to attack and who would participate in the attacks, more than likely at the direction of its FBI handlers. It's believed he participated in the anonymous effort to hack H.B. Gary, the security firm who works closely with the CIA, NSA, FBI, and Pentagon. You notice the CIA site's been hacked, not without coincidence. The Pentagon had to shut down its internet the other day, all so they can create this cybersecurity illusion that they have to have new powers, an internet kill switch, and so much more. Of course, that too is a big issue that we'll continue to cover. But DARPA has now been participating in research on a cheetah robot that can run faster than you. Right now, it's going some 18 miles an hour. They hope it could someday run 60 or 70 miles per hour. They've worked with Boston Dynamics, who have created other robots. And how nightmarish, how Terminator scenario is that, to be mauled by a robot cheetah when the government doesn't like something you're saying or doing? All this technology, just as Bertrand Russell, who we were just talking about, he said in his 1951 book, The Impact of Science on Society, that technology tends to enslave. Not because technology couldn't save us, that it can't have all these great new developments, but because these important foundations, like the Rockefeller Foundation, are steering the research and funding in the areas they want so they can use technology for control. Think about how textbook that is. As we look at this next story, Japan invents speech jamming gun that silences people mid-sentence. The device works by recording its target's speech, then firing the words back at them with a 0.2-second delay, which affects the brain's cognitive processes and causes speakers to stutter before silencing them completely. And whether or not this becomes widespread or widely accepted is a little bit beside the point. The point is they're applying research to areas of how to literally stop free speech. You've already seen all the riot control efforts, including new sophisticated shields that are supposed to choke people and keep them from being able to speak, not to mention just the general police tactics to shut down free speech. It's this disgusting pursuit of high-tech ways to stifle free speech that really should be pretty frightening. Now, it is Super Tuesday. More than 10 states will be voting in the GOP primary, And we've got an article here in the AP Wire. Super Tuesday voters put importance on GOP race. And we've got a classic situation after so much media blackout of Ron Paul, after efforts to demonize him, after saying the Iowa caucus wouldn't count if he won, after saying he's the only one other than Romney on the Virginia ballot, so nobody needs to pay attention to it. It's not interesting. We've got more of that telltale coverage that lets us know the system does not want Ron Paul in power. Mitt Romney is angling to solidify his frontrunner status, and Rick Santorum to keep it to a two-man race as voters in 10 states put Super Tuesday's imprint in the Republican presidential context. Newt Gingrich just hopes to keep his struggling campaign alive with a strong showing in Georgia. That's the Associated Press's lead article. It's not until, that's the first paragraph, it's not until paragraph 17 that Ron Paul is mentioned briefly in terms of being on the Virginia ballot, and not until paragraph 26 out of these 27 paragraphs where they say Rep. Ron Paul of Texas was focusing on today's caucuses in Alaska, Idaho, and North Dakota, and he is competitive in those 3 states. But again, his name can't be mentioned until the very bottom of the article. Go figure. However, you've got 6 Mitt Romney cousins all backing Ron Paul. No, this isn't about whether Ron Paul might possibly be considered for a VP slot if Romney ends up taking the nomination. No, this is members of the Romney family going out on their own to actually campaign for Ron Paul, including in Idaho, where, again, Ron Paul is competitive. They include Travis Romney, Troy Romney, Chad Romney, Jared Romney, and others. Won't read all names. Let's see. Travis Romney said in part, "I support Ron Paul because he defends the Constitution, loves America, understands what it means to be an American, including the right to live your life any way you want as long as you respect others," said Travis Romney, a second cousin once removed from the former Massachusetts governor. And of course, Mitt Romney stands for none of that. But let's just see what happens here on Super Tuesday and how they continue to push Ron Paul out of acceptance, tell people he can't win as they cheat on the votes, as they obscure coverage to make sure he doesn't win. Well, you can't stop the effect he's having. This Ron Paul revolution is much bigger than just the phony vote, the charade we're put through year after year, cycle after cycle, choosing lesser of two evils. Well, they game us again and again, lie us into war again and again, lie to us, tell us our votes count for something when they count for nothing under this system unless we speak out against the real powers there. We're going to be back from break with Timothy Baldwin on the Romans 13, but we do ask that you consider subscribing to the PrisonPlanet.tv broadcast, this InfoWars nightly news transmission that's made possible not from corporate grants, not from big dollars, but from individual supporters, from you out there. And if you don't support us monetarily, please spread the word about this broadcast. Send people the YouTube videos. If you don't send them all the videos, send them the ones you think are most important. If you don't like the way we say it, you say it. You get the message out there. We got to do something, just like the end of that famous movie, Soylent Green. Somehow, we got to stop them, somehow.
One is a serial hypocrite who lobbied for Freddie Mac before the housing crisis and for the individual mandate before Obamacare. Another, a counterfeit conservative who opposes right to work, massively increased spending, and funded Planned Parenthood. Finally, a flip-flopper who's been on all sides, supported TARP bailouts, and provided the blueprint for Obamacare. 3 men, 1 vision, more big government, more mandates, less freedom. 1 man stands apart, ready to deliver real change, voting against every tax increase and every unbalanced budget every time. A real plan to cut $1 trillion year 1 and to balance the budget in 3. Pro-life, pro-liberty, guided by faith and principle. Ron Paul, the one who will restore America now.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.
because these people aren't playing games.
We're going to organize. Humanity's going to come together. We are swinging muskets here, toe-to-toe with the globalists. They're bloodied, we're bloodied. It is absolute, total war.
We are back from break on the INFOWARS Nightly News, and we turn now to our guest, Timothy Baldwin. He is the co-author, along with his father, Chuck Baldwin, of Romans 13, The True Meaning of Submission. And we turn to him now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good to be on your show today.
Good to have you on. So you've written this book, and it's really all about whether or not we're supposed to obey government and kind of passively sit by while the crimes of the state go on, or whether we're supposed to be thinking, conscious individuals who are trying to make a difference in this world.
That's right, Aaron. The book that my dad and I wrote addressed this issue that we hear so often today about the Christian's duty to submit to government no matter what. So we wrote this book in response to that, and because we see first of all, it's a distortion of scriptures. Second of all, it's got such a detrimental effect on our society, and we're seeing the consequences of that today. It's time that we discuss this intelligently.
Right, and you've got tyrants throughout history. Hitler loved the Romans 13 passages. A lot of other people have misapplied it as well to construe greater government power in the 20th and 21st centuries, where we see massive state power all across the globe.
I'll tell you what's interesting. If you look to the history of the Romans 13 argument, of course, we see it throughout the Dark Ages. We see it whenever the monarchs of yesteryear would use Romans 13 to get their citizenry to submit to their evil and tyrannous ways. And that argument did not last in America when especially the colonial preachers began to teach on the true meaning of Romans 13. So from a period of about the 1600s and the 1700s, and even into the 1800s in the United States, this divine right of government argument really did not hold sway in the United States. But what's interesting is you see a revival of the Romans 13 submit no matter what argument whenever George Hegel, and of course, if you know your first, you know that George